At the family Christmas gift exchange, I gave my brother a sealed envelope, 3 months of covered rent. He opened it, looked around, and said, "Tries to compensate for the fact that he's not needed by this family." The whole room erupted with laughter except for me. I just took the envelope back and said, "Useful to know." 10 minutes later, the whole family was shouting, "Please listen to us." I handed my brother a sealed envelope stuffed with $2,400 in cash. 3 crisp stacks of hundreds, each paper-clipped, organized, and enough to cover his rent for the next 3 months. I didn't put a card in it. No message, just money. I figured he'd get the point. He tore it open lazily like he already knew it was something for me and wasn't worth rushing over. He pulled out the bills, raised his eyebrows, and then said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Tries to compensate for the fact that he's not needed by this family." Laughter, like real full-on laughter. My dad clapped. My mom giggled and covered her mouth. My Aunt Sharon actually wheezed. Someone muttered savage under their breath. And I just stood there watching them, holding an empty coffee mug, wondering why I ever bothered showing up. No one said thank you. Not even a quiet, "Hey, this helps." Jake didn't even acknowledge what it was. Like $2,700 just falls from the sky for people like him. He's 23, no job, no resume, spends his days sleeping, gaming, or pretending to apply for jobs. My parents call him a late bloomer. I call him a professional dependent. I reached over, pulled the envelope out of his hand, slipped it into my coat pocket, and said, "Useful to know." That was it. Just 3 words, but the air changed immediately. It was like someone hit the mute button on the party. Plates stopped clinking. No more laughter. I didn't yell. I didn't look angry. I just stood up and started putting on my jacket. Mom was the first to break the silence. "Oliver, don't do this. It was a joke." Then came Dad. "Come on. He didn't mean anything. Sit down. Eat something." Then the aunts chimed in. "Let's not ruin Christmas. You're taking this the wrong way. You know how your brother is." "Yeah, I do. That's the problem." What they didn't know is that I was already at the edge. For months, I'd been covering their rent, their groceries, their utilities. Every excuse from Dad's supposed back injury to Mom's sudden career break ended with me wiring money to keep them afloat. And not once did anyone check to see if I was doing okay. They just assumed that keep showing up, keep paying, keep being the responsible one. And while Amanda was spending Christmas with her family in Vermont, I was here getting laughed at for giving too much. So I told them as plainly as I could that this was the last month I'd be paying their bills. Starting next month, Jake would have to figure out how to cover rent on his own. I wasn't interested in playing family banker anymore. That's when the shouting really started. Everyone had something to say. That I was being dramatic. That I'd regret this. That it was just a stupid joke and I needed to grow a thicker skin. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I just walked out and left the door open behind me. There was no dramatic slamming. No last look. Just the cold air and the quiet realization that something had finally fully snapped. I thought walking out of the Christmas exchange would be the hard part. Turns out that was the easiest thing I'd done in years. The fallout started the next morning. Missed calls, long texts, guilt-laced voice notes. My mom went full performance mode. "You embarrassed your brother on Christmas. This family's been through a lot. You've always been the one we could count on." She didn't even acknowledge the envelope or the fact that Jake insulted me in front of everyone. Just skipped right to the part where I was the problem for reacting. I ignored it. Let it all sit unread. By day 2, they got more direct. "Your dad's trying to talk to you like a man," she wrote. "Don't shut him out." So I went over for dinner. I wasn't expecting much, but I figured I'd let them say their piece so I could say mine. Jake was exactly as I expected. Hudian, eyes on his phone. Not a single word. Mom tried to play hostess, acting like it was Thanksgiving and not a damage control meeting. My dad made some weird attempt at small talk about the stock market, which was hilarious considering I'd been paying their electric bill the past 3 months. After dinner, he finally dropped the act and started talking about perspective. How money complicates things. How he was sorry if things got out of hand. Then came the pitch, not an apology, a pitch. If you could just help us through February, we'll have things sorted. I've got a lead on a job. Jake's thinking of taking a course. It's just bad timing, that's all. That was the moment I knew none of them got it. I told them this wasn't about one envelope. I told them I'd been covering their bills, fixing their car, paying off Jake's bounce checks for 2 years. And what did I get for it? Mockery, dismissal. They laughed at me for doing what none of them could manage. Jake finally looked up and muttered something like, "Nobody asked you to." I laughed once. Then I got up and told them they had 30 days to figure out how to function like adults. Mom started crying. Dad said I was overreacting. Jake went back to his phone. I left my key on the hallway table and didn't say goodbye. The next week, I got a text from Mom. "Rent is due in 5 days. Please send what you can." I Venmo'd them $1. Caption: "More than I can afford." That was the last time I sent them anything. For the first few days, it was quiet. I think they expected me to come crawling back with a check and an apology like always, but I didn't. I was done. What they didn't realize was that Amanda and I had been living together since November. Nothing dramatic, just two people who enjoyed being around each other. Her family didn't know much about me beyond a few hellos at gatherings. I was polite, quiet, nobody special, but that changed after Christmas. Amanda's dad called me out of the blue to help him fix some shelving in their garage. I went, mostly because I had nothing better to do and partly because I liked the guy. We spent a couple hours working in the cold, talking about tools and old cars. Nothing deep, but then he asked if I wanted to stay for dinner, so I did. That one dinner turned into 3, then a weekend visit, then a spontaneous invite to her cousin's New Year's brunch. And it was the strangest thing. I was just treated like a person, not a walking ATM, not someone to be guilt-tripped or used. Her family actually listened when I spoke. They asked about my job, my hobbies, what music I liked. Amanda's mom asked if I liked banana bread and then baked some the next day because I had mentioned it once. It was all so normal, so easy, and in a weird way it felt like I'd been a guest in my own life up until then. On New Year's Eve, we were sitting around Amanda's parents' fireplace, drinking cheap wine, and talking about bad first dates when I got a text from Jake. "Can you spot me $400 for a new TV? Ours is busted." No. "Hi. No. Hope you're well." Just a request like nothing had happened. I sent $1. Caption should be plenty. I never got a response. That was the last time I heard from any of them. By the second week of January, I started to notice something strange. No calls, no texts, no unexpected requests for help. It was almost unsettling. I'd gotten so used to being leaned on or leaned into that their silence felt like the quiet before a storm. Then one evening, a knock at the door. It was around 8 p.m., freezing outside, and there was my dad. No text, no warning, just standing there in a windbreaker, like it was still normal for him to show up at my place whenever he felt like it. He didn't ask if it was a good time. He didn't even wait for an invite in. He stepped past me into the apartment like it still belonged to him, like we were back in the days when I lived under his roof instead of bailing him out of his mortgage every other month. Amanda wasn't home, thankfully. She was out with her sister, and I wasn't ready to have her see what this part of my life looked like in person. He didn't sit down, just stood there in the middle of the room and said, "I need to talk to you about something serious." I leaned against the wall and waited. He got straight to it. They were 2 months behind on the house. The mortgage company had been calling. There was a final notice taped to the door that morning. He said they needed $8,000 to get current and stop the foreclosure process. I didn't say anything. He started throwing in justifications. Said he'd been looking for work. Said the disability case was still pending. Said Jake was going through something, but had plans to get his act together. I asked one thing, "Where's Jake right now?" He looked at the floor and said, "In his room playing something, of course." Then he said, "Look, I know we haven't always shown it, but we do appreciate everything you've done. This isn't easy to ask, but if we lose the house, your mom, it'll break her." I told him I was sorry. I really was, but I wasn't loaning them anything. Not $8,000. Not $800. Not 8. He stared at me like he couldn't process it. Like this was some test and I was giving the wrong answer. He said, "So that's it. You're just going to let your family drown. I told him I didn't let anyone drown. I was the one they were clinging to while they refused to swim, and I was done being the life raft. He got quiet. Then he said the thing that sealed it. I should have known you turned your back when things got hard. That's when I opened the door and told him he needed to leave. He didn't argue, just walked out, not saying another word. The next day, I got a group message from my mom. It was one of those mass texts please she sent when something bad happened. Hi family. We're in a bit of a crisis and trying to raise funds to save the house. Anything at all helps. Thank you and God bless. I read it 3 times, waiting for something. Anything. That sounded like accountability. There was none. A few aunts chimed in with offers. We can help with $100. Let us know what you need. Sending prayers. I stayed silent. 3 days later, Jake texted me. Hey, things are bad. I'm selling my PC and trying to scrape together what I can. Can you help cover the rest? You'll get it back. I swear. No greeting. No apology. I replied with one word. No. He fired back immediately. So, you're seriously just going to let us lose the house? Wow. I didn't answer. What could I say that I hadn't already? Every word felt like fuel for more guilt, more manipulation. That weekend, Amanda and I went to her cousin's birthday dinner. Her family had started inviting me to everything. Casual get-togethers, brunches, random errands. Her dad even asked me to help him build a new workbench in the garage. Her mom pulled me aside before dinner and said, "You're good for her. I hope you know we're happy to have you around." I nodded, not really trusting myself to speak. It hit harder than I expected. Later that night, I checked my phone and saw one more message from my mom. Just a link to a GoFundMe page with a picture of our house and a goal of $8,000. The description said, "Unexpected hardship. Please help us keep our home. Any amount helps." There was no mention of Jake, no mention of years of mismanagement, no mention of me. I clicked the donate button, typed in $1, and hit send. Anonymous, no note, and I finally felt like I was starting to breathe. February came and went without a single word from them. No texts, no calls, no emails, nothing. The GoFundMe quietly stalled out at $740. I checked it once, maybe twice, more out of curiosity than concern. There were comments from people I vaguely remembered. My mom's old coworker, an old neighbor from the block I grew up on. All saying things like, "Praying for your family and hope you get through this." Not one mentioned the golden child. Not one asked why Jake wasn't helping. Why the fully grown son, still living at home, hadn't sold his expensive gaming chair or his sneakers or his 10-year-old sense of entitlement. The house didn't go into foreclosure that month, which meant someone stepped in. Maybe an uncle, maybe one of the aunts. I didn't care enough to find out. I had moved on. At least that's what I told myself. But there were still little echoes. Amanda and I were at her brother's place one weekend helping them paint a nursery when I saw a notification on my phone. A message from an unknown number. "Saw you with Amanda's family? Real cozy over there. Forgot about us already." I stared at it for a long minute before deleting it. No response. Not even worth the energy. Amanda's family, on the other hand, kept pulling me in. Slowly, without pressure. I come over to fix a leaking faucet and her dad would hand me a beer afterward, ask about work, talk about sports. Her mom started asking me to bring dishes to potlucks like I'd always been part of the circle. Her little cousin asked if I'd teach him how to drive stick shift in the summer. It was subtle, but it was steady. They never once asked me for anything. They never joked at my expense. They just included me. One Sunday afternoon, Amanda's dad called me directly, said they were having a small cookout, wanted to know if I could help with the grill. I showed up and he handed me the tongs like it was a passing of the torch. He didn't even ask if I'd done it before, just assumed I could figure it out. Midway through the afternoon, Amanda leaned over and whispered, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah," and I meant it. It felt strange standing there flipping burgers, laughing with people who didn't know the old version of me. They didn't know the guy who used to drive an hour every other week to fix someone else's plumbing or float someone else's credit card debt. They didn't see me as broken or bitter or bitterly responsible. They just saw me, A few days later, I got one last attempt from my mom. A message that read, "Can you help us get a new TV? Just a small one. Ours finally died. Jake's been really down lately. $400 would be enough." I stared at the screen for a while. Then I sent $1 caption. "Tell Jake to pick up a book." That was it. That was the last time I heard from them. Not even a thanks. Not even an okay silence finally. And for once, it didn't feel like punishment. Felt earned. By March, the silence from my family had calcified into something permanent. Not a cold war, more like a quiet resignation on both sides. No one reached out anymore. No more subtle jabs from Jake. No half-hearted guilt trips from Mom. No new numbers texting vague threats disguised as concern. I thought it might feel lonely. Didn't. Amanda and I were settling into something that finally felt stable. Not flashy, not overly romantic, just consistent. She'd leave little lists in the kitchen like "Don't forget your lunch" or "Buy milk" with a dumb doodle of a cow on the side. I found myself looking forward to errands like going to the farmer's market on Saturdays just so we could argue about which apples were better. It wasn't love bombing or theatrics. It was small, real things. Her family, though, that's where the shift really started to hit. It was Amanda's mom, out of all people, who triggered it. One Sunday afternoon, she asked me to come early to help with chairs for her cousin's baby shower. I assumed it was just a setup thing, but then she handed me a list of errands as if I'd already been adopted into the logistics chain. I didn't even blink. I just did it. At some point during the party, I noticed Amanda's dad watching me. I thought maybe he was sizing me up again. Old habits. But after everyone left and we were taking down decorations, he said something I didn't expect. "You know, you handle yourself well. I've seen a lot of people fold under way less." He didn't elaborate. Didn't say what he knew or what Amanda might have told him. But it stuck with me. That night, I found myself scrolling back through old messages from my family. Nothing dramatic, just looking, trying to remember what it used to feel like to be wanted only when things fell apart. I didn't respond to any of them. I deleted the thread. The next twist came unexpectedly. Amanda and I were out getting tacos when she casually mentioned, "By the way, my cousin Julia invited us to the lake house next month." I paused. The same one who didn't remember my name the first 4 times I met her. She laughed. "Yeah, but now you're Oliver who fixed the grill, so apparently you've been upgraded." It sounded harmless. Just a casual weekend. Until Julia's husband, Brian, pulled me aside that Friday night at the lake and said he wanted to talk business. Turned out he worked at a small firm that needed a project manager with IT background. He didn't know much about me beyond what Amanda told him, that I was dependable, organized, and not a jackass, but he was interested. He said, "You're not on LinkedIn, which is weird, but people remember how you made them feel. That counts more." I hadn't even known I was being considered for anything. We talked for an hour. By the end of the weekend, I had a tentative offer. Less travel, more flexibility, higher salary. Amanda found me sitting on the dock that Sunday morning, just staring out at the water. She asked if I was okay. I nodded, just processing, because the truth was something about all of this felt like theft, like I was taking something that wasn't meant for me, a family that wasn't mine, a job opportunity handed to me over beers, peace that I hadn't earned, at least not in the ways I used to define it. I told her about the offer. She just said, "Told you they'd like you." The next week, my mom called. First time in months. No voicemail, just a missed call. I let it sit. Then a second call followed by a text. "Can we talk?" Nothing bad. Just talk. For a second, I felt the old twitch. That instinct to make things easier, to smooth it over. But I didn't call back. I forwarded the text to Amanda. She replied, "Your life's quieter now. Keep it that way." She was right. The more I pulled away, the clearer everything became. They weren't reaching out because they miss me. They were reaching out because something wasn't working without me. But I was done being a function, a fallback, a transaction. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was escaping something. I felt like I had arrived. April started with the kind of peace that made me suspicious at first. I kept waiting for the next hit, the next request, the next way they tried to reel me back in. But the phone stayed quiet. The inbox was clear. The weight I'd gotten used to carrying financially, emotionally, all of it was gone. I'd taken the job Brian offered. He texted me one morning with a start date and a list of onboarding documents like it was the most casual thing in the world to change someone's trajectory. I signed them the same day. Better pay, less stress, and no one treating me like a machine that only existed to solve their problems. Amanda's family found out, of course, not because I said anything. I never liked talking about wins too much, but because her mom heard it from Amanda, and then it spread like wildfire through the rest of them. Her dad invited us over for dinner, made ribs, and opened a bottle of wine that he usually saved for holidays. Midway through the meal, he raised his glass and said to Oliver, "For knowing when to stay in a fight and when to walk away." Everyone toasted. I said, "Thanks." And that was it. No jokes, no barbs, no awkward reminders of old mistakes, just people being happy for me. That same night after we got home, I saw it. A missed call from my mom. No message this time, just a call at 9:46 p.m. A number I knew by heart and hadn't heard from in months. It sat there on my screen like a question I didn't want to answer. Then a few days later, a voicemail. "Your cousin said you got a new job. I'm glad to hear that. I hope you're happy. We're still here if you want to come back." Come back. As if all I done was take a break. As if what happened on Christmas didn't change anything. As if years of being treated like a tool with a wallet could be reset with a 5-second message that didn't include the word sorry. I didn't respond. I didn't even save it this time. The next hit came in May. A text from Jake. It was a screenshot of a flat-screen TV for $399 on sale at Best Buy. Below it, just one line. "You could help. $400 isn't a lot to someone like you." No greeting, no context. Not even a fake pretense of brotherly concern. I didn't get mad. I didn't sigh. I didn't feel anything. I sent him $1. Caption. "Still too much." He never replied. That was the last time I heard from him. Amanda and I went to the lake house again that weekend. Just us. No plans, no schedule. She brought books. I brought charcoal and meat. We grilled. We swam. We played old card games and talked about nothing until the sun went down. It felt like something out of a life I never thought I'd get to live. That Saturday night, sitting by the fire with a blanket over her knees and her hair still wet from the lake, she asked me, "Do you miss them?" I thought about it longer than I expected to. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I finally understood what she was really asking. I said, "I miss what I hoped they'd be. But that version of them didn't exist. I think I was just too close to see it." She nodded once. Good. After she went to bed, I stayed out by the fire. I opened my phone, scrolled through the old messages one last time, then hit delete. Every number, every thread, even the saved contacts. I didn't want the temptation. I didn't want the wait. There's a line you cross when you stop explaining yourself. When you stop arguing your side in hopes that someone will finally understand. I wasn't explaining anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping they'd change. I had changed, and that was enough. When I came to bed, Amanda rolled over half asleep and said, "Everything okay?" I kissed her on the forehead. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's finally okay." Update. A small surprise that hit me harder than expected. So, it's been a few months since everything happened. I wasn't planning to post anything else. I figured the story ended where it should have. Clean break, new job, Amanda. Her family basically unofficially adopting me and my old life fading out in the rear view. But something happened last week that threw me a little. Amanda and I were at her parents' house for a casual Sunday lunch. Just sandwiches and lemonade in the backyard. Nothing fancy. Her mom disappeared inside for a few minutes, then came back with this small cardboard box, like the kind you get jewelry in, but slightly bigger. She handed it to me and said, "It's nothing big, just something we found when we were cleaning the attic." I opened it. Inside was an old Polaroid photo. Me and Amanda from our first Thanksgiving at her family's house. I was holding a paper plate stacked with food. Mid-bite, looking confused and half laughing. Amanda was next to me, pointing at something out of frame, laughing so hard her eyes were closed. I barely remembered it being taken. Her mom said, We kept it because that's the day we realized you fit in. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because of the photo, but because someone took the time to remember that moment. To frame me in a memory I didn't even know had meaning. I kept the box. It's on the shelf in our living room now, right next to a plant Amanda swears isn't dying. Anyway, just wanted to say sometimes the biggest surprise isn't a dramatic event. It's just someone showing you that you were seen, that you mattered quietly without needing anything in return. Thanks for following the whole story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more updates and stories.